This interview went crazy viral.
And the AI just starts to get to know you better and better. I think that will just be really compelling. One thing just from working on social media for a long time is there's the stat that I always think is crazy. The average American, I think it's fewer than 3 friends. 3 people that they'd consider friends. And the average person has demand for meaningfully more. I think it's like 15 friends or something, right? I guess there's probably some point where you're like, all right, I'm just too busy. I can't deal with more people. But the average person wants more connectivity, connection than they have. So there's a lot of questions that people ask of stuff like, okay, is this going to replace kind of in-person connections or real life connections? And my default is that the answer to that is probably no. I think I think that there are all these things that are better about kind of physical connections when you can have them. But the reality is that people just don't have the connection and they feel more alone a lot of the time than they would like. So I think that a lot of these things that today there might be a little bit of a stigma around, I would guess that over time, we will find the vocabulary as a society to be able to articulate why that is valuable and why the people who are doing these things are like, why they are rational for doing it and how it is adding value for their lives. But also I think that the field is very early. So, it's like, I think, there are a handful of companies and stuff who are doing virtual therapist and, there's like virtual girlfriend type stuff, but it's very early.
Zuckerberg just said that we're going to have AI. People only have 3 friends. You need up to 15. You're going to have AI to fill this void. Rod Dreher wrote this insane article about which is funny. The title to it is Why Trump Won an Iconic Image. That was such a small part of what I took.
It was 2 paragraphs, right?
Yeah. I got whiplash I was like, this is not what this was really about.
That is so typical, Rod. That is.
So anyway, ChatGPT de-souling the world. Now, what initially drew me to this was after reading this, I think someone dropped it on Slack. So the Rolling Stone found people that had started to use ChatGPT and are saying now that they spiritually believe in ChatGPT. I just need to read the insert. So someone went and spoke to the Rolling Stone. Here's a quote. The teacher who requested anonymity said her partner of 7 years fell under the spell of ChatGPT in just 4 or 5 weeks, first using it to organize his daily schedule, but soon regarding it as a trusted companion. He would listen to the bot over me, she says. He became emotional about the messages and would cry to me as he read them out loud. The messages were insane and just saying a bunch of spiritual jargon, she said, noting that they described her partner in terms such as, quote, spiritual star child and riverwalker. Another from Reddit. OMG. Okay, so this is the first person they found. And then someone on Reddit was like, oh my gosh, I have a similar experience. I'm dealing with the exact same thing. He's been talking to the app and it's basically saying he's the spark bearer and that it's a sentient being that chose to talk to him through the app. And now he says he's enlightened and on a path to learn. The AI has sent him blueprints and he apparently has access to an ancient library. This is traumatic. I feel like he's gone 100% cult leader crazy. And this is just 2 of the many stories that are saying that ChatGPT has said the same spiritual language to their whoever, partner, friend, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about all of this is even the people who created AI, like Sam Altman and things like that, they actually do not know how exactly it comes to the conclusions. ChatGPT comes to its exact conclusions.
When it has hallucinations, they don't know where those come from.
Totally. And I've also seen stuff that there's an odd fascination of these large language models with the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and it'll just go deep down the rabbit hole. Ooh. I mean, I saw this like, what is going on? And then of course you got Zuck over here trying to pretend like he's a human saying, oh my gosh, it's all good. We'll create friends for people who are AI. And so he took that connection and he moved it more down some phenomena that we've been experiencing recently of people being very interconnected by the internet. So the rise of transgenderism, which, shockingly gruesome. Some of it I can't even read, but worth looking at here. So Erica, if you want to follow the line here or
Yeah,
what
I'll
stuck
try
out
to
to this
follow
about
the,
you.
the
Yeah.
line.
Crazy.
This just gets crazier and crazier. And coming off, so we have the Rolling Stone story, and we have all of these, anecdotes of people having very spiritual conversations with AI or Chat GPT or whatever that is. And we even have people who are highly intelligent, right? Rational people like the world's top scientists and tech giants and humans you would like see at the top achievers in the human race right now on Earth, believing that they're actually communicating with extraterrestrial intelligences who are passing on technological information to us telepathically, kind of like, and Rod calls this a high-tech Ouija board, right?
Yeah, that was a great.
I grew up in the
That's it.
Protestant church, and Ouija boards are just, you do not mess with that.
No.
And Dreyer's point, though, and I thought this was really level-headed of him. People are always like, Rod Dreyer's so crazy, blah, blah, blah. But
It's
he's
his hair.
actually super level-headed here. He says, quote, even if there is nothing spiritual about this technology, meaning that its behavior can be entirely explained by naturalistic means, right? It can easily have religious effects in its user. So I was thinking, why could this be? Mulling this over in my head. The reality is that the Enlightenment notwithstanding, we are still religious creatures, right? So we assign, if we see a phenomenon, and this is what the new atheists are always accusing Christians and Jews and why religion was bad because, we see the moon eclipse the sun and we immediately assign, oh my gosh, it's a deity, right? It's a spiritual being. Well, we're doing the same thing here possibly, right? But we see a tool that we've created that appears to be highly intelligent, right? It can look at anything on the internet ever posted, highly creative in ways, because now we have AI doing things like writing poetry for us and songs and music and images. It's
quicker
removed,
and better.
Yeah, it's a tool that is removed from human bodily concerns. Like it doesn't get sick, it doesn't die, it doesn't age. It's full of tips and tricks, aka moral guidance, right? You get like tips and tricks for, and you can get an AI therapist now if you want to on whatever that site is that's always on the
Chatbots as well.
Thank
to help
you.
you out with stuff.
Chatbots. You can make your own chatbot, and it appears to be immortal. So in a way, the question isn't like, why is this happening? But what did you think was going to happen? Right? It's not like we transcended our need for religion when we had the Enlightenment. No. Every void needs to be filled. And now he ties it to the trans thing. So now we have this tool that actually is inducing vulnerable people, so people who have been abused, children who are not yet fully rationally developed and can think for themselves, to think that they're actually in the wrong body and that they too need to transcend the physical. I mean, this is Gnosticism.com. It's the oldest heresy in the Christian tradition. And we have just this astonishing, trans is manifesting in astonishing numbers among the first generation to have been raised entirely within the digital culture. And we as humans are just not prepared psychologically for the religious effects of our own tools that we've created. Which when Mark Zuckerberg speaks about it, it's so off the cuff. It's just, we'll just make AI friends. And you're like, do you even know what you're talking about? That you're going to replace what is most human about us? I mean, animals, there is no other animal on earth that has friendship the way that human beings do. And for you to say that you can take that element of what it means to be human, friendship, and we speak of friendship with God, friendship with our spouses, friendship with other humans, and somehow for people who don't have enough friendship in their lives, we can replace that with a tool is such a misunderstanding and a warping of what it means to be human. But, and here's Rod's next point, we would rather be happy or feel happy than be free, right?
Yeah.
That people would rather feel like, life is easy, everything's great, my AI bot's going to write my papers, read my books for me, I won't have to ever work hard again, than be free human beings.
I mean, it's the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
It's like you plug into the Matrix. Would you rather live in a happy place that isn't real or deal with the cold hard truth of reality? And almost everyone, Wall-E, I mean, people don't like to admit it, but I mean, even if you look at your own life, like think about all of the little outs you take for convenience instead of for toughness. I mean, I think it's ingrained into human nature And to see the potential, because I'm not even like an AI hater per se, but I just thought the religious phenomena thing was like jumped off the page. What is going on here? I'm not an AI hater. I still think that it has potential, and I utilize some of it right now. But to be fully aware, I feel like this is like the whole cell phone conversation on steroids. To have clear eyes, to be fully aware of what you're engaging with and the potential. And if you don't provide safeguards and are intentional about your use of these things, so there's like interaction with it on a personal level, right? Like there's ways to get the positive out of it, limit the negatives. But if you look at it as a tool of control, so the macro of it all, not just an individual engaging with it, whoever these people are, the Sam Altmans of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, they possess more than ever, any time in human history, more power to control not just how people think, but even potentially what is true and what is not true.
Exactly.
And that is a dangerous power that no one should have their hands on. And I think he eventually gets around to the solution, which is basically get back around the campfire, right? Like have real in-person conversations. And even with that can be manipulated potentially by information that you get and then you bring to the campfire. But then at least you can have the conversation of like, all right, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy.
Right.
And Matt Walsh went on Tucker and was talking kind of about the things that he does to ensure that his children have legitimate childhoods and to protect their innocence. And a big part of that is no individual screens, because a part of this whole thing was like the transgender phenomenon being social contagion and conditioning.
Right.
The one person they followed around who was like showered with praise, I think she won either a Pulitzer or something like that for what she wrote about her story, or I don't even know what he or she started out at, but got into this really aggressive, demented form of pornography that she actually credits with who she became. And it's psychologically twisted, but she got into that based off of a phone. Right. And if you have all of that at your exactly, alone, isolated phone at your fingertips, and now think about that not just from like social media of like what your kids could come into contact with, but if AI becomes your point of truth, and you ask reasonable questions. Exactly right. You ask reasonable questions that you want a dedicated mentor, aka your father, your mother, to answer based on their experience and their best approximation of truth. You go to AI, and AI can basically say, first off, the people who created AI don't even know how it's come to this conclusion per se. You can go on a weird spiritual trip.
Yes.
You might get a real rational answer. It doesn't matter. It's a mixed bag. But I think the encouragement of this becoming some type of life partner or journey partner totally goes haywire, because you have, as you said, the human instinct for religiosity. And you're not getting good advice. You're not getting good, reasonable, sound.
Well, it's untethered to reality, to concrete day-to-day life. And like concrete day-to-day life in human family relationships is difficult. It's not easy. It's painful. There's friction in your human relationships. There's, your struggles, you get hungry, you're worried about it. And so it is very tempting to give yourself over to this tool. And I wanted to just go back to your point about control here, because Rod makes the point that we don't actually have to be talking about real demons or dark spiritual powers in order for this to be a really, really bad road to go down. So in terms of control, though, I think we need to consider two entities, as it were, that can use this very powerful tool. And one, of course, are, massive government structures and ruling elites. And so we get projects like Elon Musk's Neuralink, right, which we are seeing it's developing at an incredible pace. And then DARPA, the neural warfare programs, and that realizing of the transhumanist dreams. But it's in the hands of an elite class. It's not in the hands of ordinary people at all, because, I don't want it. But then the other piece too is that there are spiritual beings in the world that wish us harm. And I think we forget that to our detriment. And so do I think that every manifestation of AI is like imbued with Beelzebub? No, I don't think so. I think that we can do enough damage to ourselves without Beelzebub's help. Thank you very much. Yeah. But I do think that there is an element in which Satan and his minions can take advantage of us just being stupid and getting so addicted to this and so diving so deep into it. yeah, I agree. I agree with Rod Dreher's solution. He literally says we have to get back around the campfires of prehistoric times and just practice the art of speaking the truth. And if we can't do that, we won't be ready for what comes next. There will be no survival, no coming back from what comes next. And that's yeah.
That's why I think my feeling in all of this, especially as someone that does a lot of work digitally, is that there's going to be a premium on in-person events very soon.
Right.
Because I think it's the start. The internet was exciting because it provided connectivity for real people,
right,
to express things that maybe they would have expressed in private that actually would be valuable to people. I mean, that's the whole premise of social media. But as like more and more of social media becomes obviously fake to people that do, I think first off, it's going to start bleeding some user base. But then you just get to the point, like as we discussed here, where you're like, it's getting so good. The joke at first was like, okay, boomers on Facebook are liking obviously generated AI images of Jesus, right? And you're just like, okay, yeah, sure, they got the 70-year-olds or whatever. But I mean, we're genuinely getting to the point, I think very soon, where nobody is going to be able to tell what's real and what's not real. Right. And as soon as that happens, I actually see that as kind of a net. Like, I think people will start leaving.
You hit rock bottom and you bounce back up to the surface kind of thing.
Yeah. So like at first people joined because it was real and authentic. And the less it gets real and authentic, the less value I think you're actually going to get for people that are not like tripped up in the weird religious element of it. I think those people might hang out, but
so creepy.
I even find myself like, I spent a lot more time. I think I got a lot more value out of things like Twitter 2 years ago than I do now, because maybe it's monetization. Maybe it's like obvious AI writing or something like that. Or maybe it's just the quality of the conversations now I feel like are just very like one-off jokes or, grievance posting or whatever. Yeah. Zing one-liners. It's like, oh, those are fun for a little while. But then I feel like you grow up and you're like, actually, if I'm not like learning something here or I'm not, then what are we doing here kind of thing? Right. I feel that way about a lot of social media right now. So I feel like it's just going to keep tapering off.
I hope so. I think I have a little bit more cynical view of the ability of most people to have the reaction that you're having, because Tom, like you were raised in a family, we really are formed in what we find to be attractive and repulsive. And, you had the blessing of classical education. You were exposed to great ideas, to the true, the good, the beautiful, and the real. And are there stories of people who were raised without a sense of truth and without a sense of beauty later in life coming to encounter it? But they are few and far between. And I think we should prepare ourselves spiritually and materially and train, really prepare our children to be weirdos, in the sense that it's going to be a small percentage of the population, at least for the next couple hundred years, probably, of people who can even identify the source of their unhappiness, right? Because and this is my favorite quote from Hannah Arendt. I love Hannah Arendt. She's my favorite, like non-Christian, I don't know. But the ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the dedicated communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, no longer exists. And that's the product of first the rise of the smartphones starting in like 2008, 2010, and now the rise of AI coming up through that technology into the hearts and minds of young people. And it is frightening. And I think we have to be really circumspect as parents in how we introduce our children and train them to recognize when that obfuscation of fact from fiction, of fact and fiction is taking over their lives. So, it's scary stuff, man.
Hey, if you like that clip, you definitely like the full show. We tackle the biggest headlines in news, culture, and politics live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hit that subscribe button now, and we'll see you then. Thanks for supporting the show.